If you were to drive down any road in China 40 years ago, you would have been in one of the few cars cruising the pavement. In fact, until 1975, there was virtually no passenger car production in China. Fast forward to today, and you would find yourself just one of over 340 million passenger vehicles on the road. So, how did a country without any car industry just a few decades ago become a major disruptor in the international automotive market? The answer may surprise you. Before we break down China's growing dominance in the auto market, make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. China is the world's largest vehicle market by annual sales and manufacturing output. And while the average Chinese family now zips around town in their own car, the influence of Chinese automobiles doesn't stop at the country's borders. In the first quarter of 2023, China exported 1.07 million vehicles, overtaking Japan to become the biggest exporter of cars in the world. The 58% increase from the same period last year is mostly thanks to the demand for electric cars and sales to Russia. But this isn't a blip. China has been steadily climbing to the top of the auto world in terms of sheer volume, and it doesn't look like it will stop its ascent anytime soon. To understand how China's auto industry has evolved, you've got to look at the nation's government and economy over the last 75 years. When the Communist Party took power in 1949, China's automotive industry was basically non-existent. The first automotive works, FAW, was established in 1953 with help from the USSR. It started producing Jiafang trucks and the high-end Hongqi limousine favored by the political elite. China's industrial growth in the 1960s and transition from a planned economy to a market economy competing with the rest of the world changed everything. Different cities and regions saw cars as a way to boost their economies, so they began creating small automotive factories of their own, with the number of these operations doubling in just 6 years. In 1994, the Chinese government designated the automotive industry as a pillar industry, intended to drive the national economy. Auto industry policy was drafted that contained an aggressive schedule for the rapid development of the Chinese market. After joining the World Trade Organization, or WTO, in the early 2000s, foreign investments began pumping cash into the Chinese industries. China could have easily continued a steady path of growth within the country, but a niche specialization made its auto industry skyrocket on an international scale. The Chinese government realized that they would never best the US, Germany, or Japan in international combustion engine manufacturing. Despite their impressive growth, Chinese automakers didn't have the years of experience behind them that would propel them to innovation. So, what did the Chinese government do with that disappointing realization? They made the decision to break away from the established tech and invest heavily in a completely new area: cars powered entirely by batteries. It was a good choice. 2022 marked the 8th consecutive year in which China was the world's largest market for electric vehicles, or EVs. But to see how much it really paid off, let's check out how China is stacking up against the old-timers, the OG auto kingpins. Germany's biggest car brands have been producing vehicles in China for decades. Volkswagen started making cars there in 1985, and China accounts for over half of the brand's sales. But as Chinese consumers began looking for battery electric cars when they purchase new vehicles, they're turning to Chinese brands to meet their needs. In EVs other than Tesla, the top 10 brands in China are all local. And China isn't the only market cooling on gas and diesel cars. European consumers, who have been plagued by high fuel prices for decades, are increasingly interested in all-electric vehicles. The pressure from China has pushed Germany to set an ambitious goal of having 15 million EVs on the road by 2030. In December 2022, more than half of all new cars registered in Germany were battery electric or hybrids. And while that sounds like an impressive stat, the reality is that it reflects the addition of 32,000 new EVs per month. But if Germany is to hit its goal, that number needs to be closer to 145,000 EV registrations per month. That's a big gap to bridge. It's important to point out that Chinese automakers have their own near-impossible leap to make it becoming competitive in the European market. German-owned Volkswagen is the best-selling car manufacturer in Europe by far. The Volkswagen Group sold 2,789,828 cars in the EU, the UK, and EFTA countries in 2022. Chinese EVs, meanwhile, only sold 58,000 units, making up 2% of the market that year. But Chinese automakers aren't just sitting on their hands and waiting patiently to earn the trust of EU customers. Brands like BYD and XPeng are strategically using Norway as their entry point to the international passenger car market. Norway's policy and infrastructure support have pushed EVs and increased competition in the market, allowing Chinese brands an opportunity to gain market share that could propel them into new markets. Next, let's look at how the Chinese automotive industry is competing with Asian auto superpower Japan. With China, Japan's shares of car sales slumped 32% year-on-year in the first quarter of 2023. Japanese automakers have been slow to adopt electric and plug-in hybrid powertrains, allowing Chinese rivals to beat Japan in certain software technologies. They can't compete on price either. China's EVs are only getting more affordable, leading consumers to choose these vehicles over foreign brands. Mitsubishi, Nissan, and Mazda are being hit particularly hard. This trend will likely be a problem for Japanese automakers in other markets too. Brands like Toyota and Honda have built their reputation on factors like durability and safety, but the draw of lower-priced electric vehicles and innovative software is undeniable. Honda Chief Executive Toshihiro Mibe said China's automakers are further ahead of us than we expected. If they want to keep up with the rising auto industry in China, Japan will have to play a lot of catch-up and fast. Speaking of catching up, just 10 years ago, the idea of Chinese autos expanding to the U.S. market was laughable. Now, automakers in China are planning how to expand to the U.S. market, despite its saturation and the sensitive political situation between the two nations. What was unthinkable for Chinese gas cars is a real possibility for EVs. Americans are just emerging from years marked by frustrating supply chain issues and price increases that have left the auto market feeling less than friendly for many consumers. The appeal of a lower-priced plug-in vehicle may tempt even the die-hard Made in America crowd to check out what else is available. You might be wondering why U.S. automakers are not diving headfirst into supercharging their own push towards affordable EVs if they can see China slowly advancing. The U.S. and some European countries have the technological capability and established supply chains to make the shift happen. But China has something no other country has backing its massive EV market: a political system willing to exact laser focus on a single industry to propel enormous growth in a short period of time. For the past 15 years, China has used financial subsidies, procurement contracts, tax breaks, and policy changes to boost its auto market. China also has a serious advantage in battery technology. Battery cells can make up about 40% of the cost of a vehicle, and batteries that are powerful and reliable while still being affordable are key to an EV's success. Over the past decade, Chinese companies have perfected the lithium iron phosphate batteries, or LFP, that are safer and cheaper than the lithium nickel manganese cobalt, or NMC batteries, favored by Western automakers. China can also refine more battery components than any other nation, giving it near total control of the sector. China still faces many hurdles to truly dominating the international auto market, and chances are veteran brands from Germany, Japan, and the US will give them a hell of a fight. But if car sales in China are any indication of what may be possible in other markets, they'd better start acting proactively fast. What do you think the chances of China dominating the international market are? Let us know in the comments below. Now, watch this video on your screen. You'll love it.